So it was finally announced that Baizhu is getting his rerun alongside Fossilors, and naturally the big question is, should you get Baizhu? In my opinion, yes, but no. We're here with Baizhu and Masanori. Now let me explain. Yes, you should get Baizhu, he's really good. He's basically the Nahida that heals if you're not playing Medic Nahida. Obviously he will have worse Dendro application than Nahida, but that's pretty much expected of everyone. And in every team where you would play Nahida, with the exception of Nahida Spread Hypercarry, you can play Baizhu as well. He is actually pretty decent in that role. But the reason why you're not going to get him, of course, is because you're not going to be able to afford him after you get Fossilors. That's the deal. But either way, let me show you a few things that you can do with Baizhu if you actually do somehow manage to get him. Because there's a lot of teams that you can play with Baizhu, basically every single team that you can play with Nahida. There's a lot of teams, I'm not going to go through all of them again. But teams where Baizhu in particular is fantastic includes Cyno Hypercarry. So for example, what's great about Baizhu is that his off-field Dendro application is enough. Notice how we are in fact maintaining like a Dendro aura, at least enough to never do Electro Charge, which is what we don't want to do in this Cyno Hypercarry team, or rather Cyno Quickbloom team. Okay, that was not a particularly, clean way of ending that particular demonstration, but either way, as you can see, we were maintaining a pretty good Dendro application with Baizhu's Shield Holistic Revivification, however the bloody hell you say that. So this particular team may potentially get a lot better when Fossilors shows up as well, so yeah, that's going to be great. But either way, the main thing is that Baizhu not only can provide the healing, but also enough Dendro application for a team like this. There is of course another team that Baizhu can work really well in. That is of course going to be Fwd Vape Neuvillette. So in this team, the premise is that we're going to let Baizhu's off-field Dendro application be enough to maintain some form of a burning aura. So like so. And so you can see we're doing some Fwd Vapes with Neuvillette because Baizhu is able to maintain that burning aura. So that's of course going to be really good for a Fwd Vape Neuvillette team. This of course was the first iteration of the Fwd Vape Neuvillette team that I had before I looked into things like Layla and Nahida. But either way, the point is that Baizhu is actually really good for that. And then of course there's a few other teams that I personally really like, which is of course internationals. So this is a team where we're basically making full use of Baizhu and Nahida as well, so let's just do it. Now, probably the biggest strength of Baizhu is that he has team-wide healing just from his skill. That is really my most favorite part of his kit, is that with the simple tap of his E, he heals the entire team. Or in this case, doesn't, because everyone's at maximum health. But either way, lots and lots of damage coming out of both Lisa, Nahida, and Miko, and also Baizhu is there just for that massive team-wide healing, as well as, just some additional damage bonus as well. There is a very interesting thing about Baizhu's kit being his A4 passive, and that is actually some additional damage that comes from anyone who gets healed from his shield. And I wanted to demonstrate the difference that makes using Tignari. So, what we're going to do is we're going to have Masanori basically be our test dummy. I'll use the skill to do the deep wood. Alright, let's have a look at how much damage we're doing with Tignari. 27.9, 29, something like that, right? Alright. So now that we're getting healed by Baizhu's shield, notice how we're now starting to do damage with numbers that are starting with 30, 38, thereabouts. Hey guys, this is Kate the Editor. So I also wanted to demonstrate the difference using Baiju's A4 passive when it comes to blooms. So in this particular bloom team, we're going to be using Candace as our trigger, and only using Baiju's skill, we are doing 67,577, in fact 68,000 damage blooms. So that is of course really nice for a Nilo bloom team. Now in this particular case, we're actually going to use Baiju's ult as well, so that Candace can get healed from Baiju's shield, Holistic Revivification. So there's the Baizhu ult, there's the Candace, and boom, we have 73,000 damage coming from those bloom seeds. In fact, nearly 74,000 damage, so quite a bit of a jump in the damage coming for the blooms. That's the difference with Baiju's shield and his A4 passive. It is a pretty sizable damage bonus coming from that passive. So having Baiju's shield active regularly does actually contribute quite a fair bit to the amount of damage that your on-fielder is doing. There's also going to be a bit of a discussion with regards to Baizhu versus Yaoyao, and to me they're both exactly the same and yet direct opposites, because with regards to using Baizhu, you get on-demand team-wide healing with his skill and consistent off-field Dendro application and single target healing with his ult. With Yaoyao it's the opposite, it's team-wide healing with her ult and somewhat consistent Dendro application and somewhat consistent single target healing with her skill. So that's how they're practically opposites. So if you want reliable on-demand healing, I would probably recommend Baizhu over Yaoyao. Also, Baizhu is probably a better use of Fav than Yaoyao, because normally you don't want to be normal attacking with Yaoyao, whereas with Baizhu, you can. So if you're trying to proc Fav with Yaoyao, you're probably going to be waiting for Yugui, in which case you might as well do some normal attacks, whereas with Baizhu, you can actually just wait on the Serpent Spirit actually hitting targets and potentially doing a crit, which is going to be really, really good to proc Fav. And if that doesn't work, you can always do normal attacks, which still make a level of sense because you can also apply Dendro with Baiju's normal attacks, as he is a mage. So that's of course going to be really, really good. So yeah, overall I prefer Baizhu more than I like Yaoyao, but they're basically the same. Now in terms of building weapons, he's actually really straightforward. For the purpose of building Baizhu as a healer, I just stick with Fav. I haven't actually given him any other weapon than Fav. So yeah, that's basically it. You can use Prototype Amber, but I don't care. We'll just have to see if that extra healing from something like Prototype Amber is necessary in a Fossil Laws team. I don't know. Otherwise, the 5-star weapons like Jade Fall and Donut are not super duper necessary unless you're building a DPS Baizhu, in which case maybe some of the Eternal Flow might be better. I don't know. In terms of the artifacts for Baizhu, Deepwood. End of story. I'm too lazy to swap artifacts with other characters and all that jazz, especially because we don't have artifact loadouts yet. So yeah, I just keep him on Deepwood right from the get-go. This is also great for teams where he is the only Dendro character. For example, Cyno, Quickbloom and all that jazz. Yeah, you can use him there. So that's really, really good. We'll see if, again, if this is enough healing for a Fossil Wars team, because if that's not the case, then potentially Maidens or Clam is going to be necessary. Now, in terms of the artifact stats itself, I've stuck with triple HP, because going for a healing bonus circlet does result in a bit more healing, but you do end up losing some of the damage bonus coming from his A4 passive. So we'll just have to see once again if this is enough healing for a Fossil Laws team, because if not, then you're probably going to go for that healing bonus circlet. Otherwise, in terms of the substats, especially if you're bringing Fav, just aiming for crit rate and ER is basically the way to go. I've somehow managed to get quite a decent amount of ER substats, so yeah, nothing too fancy there. Now, in terms of the constellations for Baizhu, none of them are important. That's the deal. I guess the only one that's like really interesting is maybe C2, because it allows you to have off-field Dendro application without even swapping into him, which could be kind of hilarious. Otherwise, whatever, who cares, right? If you do go for C2, then you do end up with C1, which is Yalan's C1 as well. And this could be potentially really, really good at reducing his ER requirements by a significant margin, in much the same way that C1 Yalan is pretty good at reducing her ER requirements by a significant margin in teams where you have someone like Cyno who's going to be on field for quite some time. So yeah, C1 Baizhu is pretty good, but it's not something I would ever bother to go for. And I probably would have only had C1 Baizhu if I accidentally got C1 Baizhu in a single temple like I did with Yalan. So yeah, that's why I don't have it. Ultimately, if you somehow have the Premier Gems left to spare after getting Fossil Lords, then yeah, I highly recommend getting Baizhu. I think he's really, really good, and I think everyone who has Baizhu has a really, really positive outlook on him and a really, really positive experience with him. So yeah, I don't really see a reason not to get Baizhu, aside from you can't afford him after getting Fossil Lords. There is one person in this community who is apparently going to try and get both C1 Baizhu and C1 Fossil Lords. Good luck with that. But yeah, if you can get him, get him. If you can't, don't. But at some point you should, because I think he's really, really good. That's pretty much it. Let me know what you think about all of this in the comments below. How do you feel about Baizhu? Let me know in the comments. Do you have him? Are you trying to get him? What are you going to do with him? Are you excited for him in Fossil Wars teams? Let me know in the comments. Otherwise, hope you guys enjoyed it. If you liked this video, hit that like button, subscribe for more Genshin Impact, and until next time, I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Let's spark this. Grow! Temple of Wisdom!
Taking a turn for the better.
Come on out. Emerge. Come a little closer. A sight to behold. Right now. Show them.
A bitter pill to swallow.
You've been a naughty boy. The Daxter was seen. Emerge. Right here. Commit it to memory. Surrender and I'll be gentle.